2023. I would like to take a moment to review our general operating procedures. Our meeting is divided into two sessions, the public hearing session and the deliberation session. In the public hearing session, the agenda item is called "The Applicant Makes Their Presentation." Commission members may ask questions. Members of the public make their comments to the commission. Only 4 people may speak for an agenda item and 4 people against. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes, subject to questions by the commission. At 1 minute remaining, you will have a warning bell or beep prompting you to summarize your comments. After opposition speakers have finished the application, is allowed a 2-minute rebuttal. If you do intend to speak, come to the podium, speak into the microphone, and provide your name and address for the record. Direct all comments to the commission only and not to the applicant, staff, or to the audience. After hearing all applications, the commission will go into the deliberation session. In the deliberation session, the commissioners discuss each application with input from the staff as necessary, but with no input from the audience. The commissioners then vote on each application. Results of the meeting can be learned from the planning department. If some issues arise during the deliberation session that were not addressed in the public hearing, the chairman has the discretion to allow additional comments or call for the application to be held over for discussion at a future meeting. Occasionally, a commissioner may recuse themselves from discussing and voting on a given application. A recusal does not mean that the member is directly involved with the application or the applicant. However, depending on the circumstances, ethical rules may require a recusal, even if there is only the slightest appearance of a conflict of interest. If a regular member recuses, a supernumerary will vote in their stead unless both supernumeraries are already voting due to absences. The Planning Commission makes final decisions on subdivisions, with appeals to those decisions going to the circuit court. The Planning Commission is strictly recommending body for rezonings, conditional use permits, and planned developments. The City Council makes a final decision on these applications. All appeals to the City Council decisions are go to the circuit court. Please turn off all cell phones and electronic devices at this time. Commissioners and staff, please turn on your microphones when speaking. I'll now take the roll. Jay Stubbs is not here. Kirk Matei, Jennifer Denson, Shirley Sessions, Larry Dorsey, Matt Anderson's here, Nick Amberger,
here,
Josh Woods, Terry Brislin, Kenny Nichols, Chad Anderson.
present.
We have a quorum. First application is we have a holdover zoning application. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with the staff recommendations? There. Oh. I've been here too long, Doug.
He's on.
Good afternoon.
Yes,
my
ma'am.
name is Natasha Pleasant, and I live at 611 Shannon Street. And I'm just here to get the status of the conditional use permit approval, and to answer any questions that anyone needs me to answer.
Excellent. Are there any questions by commissioners? Oh, could you give us your address for the record, please?
The address is 611 Shannon Street.
Okay. Any questions by commissioners? Is there anyone here? Anyone else here?
If I may, this is currently a single-family house?
Yes, sir.
How many bedrooms? Tell us,
It's,
describe the interior of the house, please.
It's 2 bedrooms, and I've been in business for 19 years. I've been in business for 17 years at this location.
So you've been operating as a business at this home
Yes.
thus far?
Yes.
What type of business?
It's a daycare.
And how many
And
kids?
I'm licensed to up to 6 children. And I was trying to expand up to 12.
How many restrooms does the facility have?
I have one.
Is the parking in the front, is it currently there, or will you have to create that parking lot?
I have to, well, I have over a 100-foot driveway, but I have to put more parking, and I'm gonna put parking on the side.
I noticed that the hours of operations of the business are going to be until midnight. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you would run a daycare in the middle of a neighborhood until midnight?
Well,
Is what you do.
I'm
Already doing that now?
licensed to do it
Okay.
From 6 a.m. to 12 a.m.
Okay. Is it the fact that Ms. Pleasant has to come here? Is this because she's increasing to 12?
You want to explain all
Yes, as part of the Unified Development Code, we added in the provision that we were getting a lot of applications to the Board of Adjustment requesting variances to allow this type of expansion. And based on concerns that were brought up during those meetings and by members of the City Council, when we prepared the Unified Development Code, we made it a conditional use. So that means that any recommendation that the Planning Commission has at today's meeting then also has to go to the City Council for a final decision. And the limit is going to be 12 maximum by any conditional use for this type of use.
Got it. And you've met with the neighborhood?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And people were concerned about traffic. I think there was one person, I think.
Yeah, I only had one that was concerned about the traffic, but he is located in the back of me.
Okay.
On the Iris Street side. The property used to go all the way back from Shannon Street all the way back to Iris Street, but it's been subdivided. So they wouldn't have any confusion in the back.
Okay.
On that side.
All right. Thanks.
Are there any other questions?
Quick question for me. I'm looking at the plan. Obviously, you got to add in some additional parking places and some parking lots. Looking at the plan, there's no handicap parking spots. Do you intend to address that? I guess in your plan.
About handicap parking.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm gonna put some on the side, some handicap parking on the side right here, to the left right there where the parking is on the screen. It will be handicap right there, where the red dot was.
Chairman, I got just a comment.
And that parking there will be close to the door, to the entrance.
Go ahead, Nick.
Chairman, I got a comment.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure the applicant understands. I mean, your site is probably going to exceed a 4,000 square foot impervious footprint, so you are probably going to turn into having to do engineering drawings, very likely retention drainage structures for it, which would also at that time probably address any concerns about formal parking, striping, and ADA requirements. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. That's
Where, I'm sorry, what was that again?
I would say you're going to have to go. You're going to have an engineer design your parking facilities. And in all likelihood, when I look at the footprint of the house, the driveway, the garage, and the other sheds, you're probably over 4,000 square feet, which effectively turns your site into a commercial site plan. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. It's the drawings that we see here are almost really just for planning purposes, and so you will have to submit some pretty serious engineering drawings before permits are actually able to be issued for your improvements there. Just want to make sure you were aware of that.
Yes, sir. I've had the drawings already drawn up, and I've talked to some contractors to be able to do that.
Okay, great.
Are there any other questions by commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, if I may add on.
Yeah.
In the report, you'll notice that there are the standard engineering comments as well as traffic engineering, urban forestry, but fire has some unique comments for this application based on the fact that it's a daycare. And so in the suggested considerations when it comes to the time for the commission to vote, I would like to note that we need to perhaps consider adding in a condition that would be compliance with engineering, traffic engineering, urban forestry, and fire comments as noted in the staff report, as well as permitting of any proposed or required improvements.
That's a great point, Bert, and I would also encourage all the commissioners to take note of the planning comments with regard to legibility of the site plan. Are there any further questions by commissioners? Anything else from staff? Is there anyone else here to speak for this item? Is there anyone here to speak against this item? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next. Number 2, subdivision request. Looks like the entire 5,000 block in 5121, 5133 Cottage Hill Road, 2113 Demetropolis, 2104 Garman's Lane. Is the applicant present? Do you have any statement you'd like to make with regard to the staff comments? Are there any questions by commissioners? Hearing none, we'll hand it off to our.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll continue doing what we're doing now. Move on to the next item, number 3. It's a subdivision request 6275 Overlook Road, Live Oak Trace subdivision. Is the applicant present? Do you have any remarks with regard to staff comments? Excellent. Are there any questions by commissioners? Hearing none, we'll move on. Oh, is there anyone here to speak against this item? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on to the next. Also subdivision 5761 U.S. Highway 90 West, Theodore Veterinary Hospital subdivision. Is the applicant present? Do you have any remarks with regard to staff comments? Please state your name and address.
I'm Tom Clark with Clark Gear Latham Engineers. I'm representing the applicant, 3901 Spring Hill Avenue. I just had a couple of clarifications. One of the statements from the engineering comments, let me find it real quick, was with regard to the historical credit for stormwater. This facility was built in the, let's say 20 years ago, when this property was in the county. And it's always been my understanding that the city engineering has accepted when a project was annexed in that if it was permitted properly, which it was, that the whatever was built and agreed upon was good. This statement, it may have been a little bit ambiguous, but it basically said there was not going to be given any credit for the stormwater. And I wanted to make sure that was not misinterpreted.
That would really just be if you were to start the site over again, you wouldn't have the credit for it.
Right. The other thing I wanted to say, I wanted just to clarify for this commission, because what I said a minute ago, this was originally built in the county, and when we looked at the project originally about a year ago, we recognized pretty quickly in meeting with the staff that we were not going to meet the frontage landscaping because of the way the building was situated on the site. The board recommended we get a variance to allow us to live with the limited amount of landscaping in the front, which we did. The variance was approved. But what we did, we showed, and the landscaping, the subdivision shows that we've got a second lot in the rear. It's about 1.3 acres, I believe. All of that is completely within floodway and probably never be developed. So it was decided to subdivide that out to keep from encumbering the front developable property. So that's how we got where we are. The comment in the engineering statement says that the flag-shaped lot is not desirable, and we understand that, but this project will never be, that parcel will probably never be developed, certainly by this owner. So we're asking for relief from that. And one other comment that was made by staff to me the other day made good sense, that the current configuration between the line between lot 1 and 2 still leaves some of the flood zone on lot 1, which will encumber the further development of this project. So we'd like latitude to work with the staff and maybe tweak that subdivision a little bit, which will reduce the size of lot 1, make lot 2 a little bit larger, but keep all of the flood zone on lot 2.
Mm-hmm. Any questions by commissioners? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak for this item? Is there anyone here to speak against this item? Hearing none, now we will hand it off to the Secretary, Jennifer Denson, to chair.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I apologize for being late, and this is my first meeting with the iPad, so I'm on a learning curve. But our next item is number 5 on 1154 Athey Road, a subdivision of 5 lots. Is the applicant present? Do you agree with staff recommendation? Please state your name and address for the record.
Millard Austin, McKinley Avenue, Mobile, Alabama. I'd like to request a holdover to work out some plat changes with staff.
For just one meeting till the next meeting, which I believe is the 7th, is that correct? Or would you like it to be later?
Week.
So to the second. And what would be the date be that you would need to have any revised materials to the staff?
Mr. Austin has already submitted the information, so
Okay,
we have that.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Austin. Number 6 is also had a request for a holdover to the September 7th meeting. It is for Christ United Methodist Church subdivision. We don't take any testimony.
That's correct. They submitted a request, and we've mailed out notices to adjacent property owners to let them know.
Okay, fantastic. Was there anyone else that wanted to speak, even though they had requested a holdover and it will most likely be granted for number 5? Anyone to speak for or against that application? Okay, fantastic. Well, this will conclude our public hearing, and now we will turn to the deliberation. Number 1, 611 Shannon Street, the conditional use permit.
I would like to, since we have some new members here that didn't experience what we've gone through. Well, nobody on this board did, because everything was before the Board of Adjustment. As Bert said earlier in response to Harry's question, these were previously, you had to get a use variance to go over 6 kids in a house. The Board of Adjustment granted a couple of them and then got bombarded with these applications. And then we made the determination that none of them could legally get a variance because they couldn't prove a hardship to go over 6. So when and Shayla, Burke, correct me if I'm wrong, in doing the UDC, we decided, the city decided to move into the special use exception. One thing, well, you have in your staff report the criteria or considerations to look at. And you got to realize that when you go from 6 to 12, you have different fire codes, building codes, health codes, and you have to convert it to a commercial building pretty much. Sprinkler system, firewalls. Is one bathroom enough for this many children and staff, employees? So when you look through these considerations, realize that, and I'm not trying to say vote yes or no. I just want to make sure everybody understands the history and the impact possible when you build a parking lot. Would that have to be paved?
It'd have to be paid.
A paved parking lot in the neighborhood in converting it to a commercial building. So that's the extent of the codes that they would have to comply with. I just want to make sure everybody understood that.
I'd like to add for the commissioners too, a big trigger for engineering and planning is that 4,000 square feet. So most homes that are 4,000 square feet, they fill out what's called a single family affidavit, and they're not required to build retention ponds and such stuff as that. When they go over that 4,001, all of a sudden you're triggering a commercial site plan. So you go from from fairly simple being able to deal with your drainage, your drawings, to something fairly complicated that involves engineering and engineering drawings.
And since this is our first one under the UDC, I just wanted to make sure we set the right precedent from the get-go and don't open floodgates.
No, I agree, and that's one of my questions that I had, that you would have to upgrade the building to commercial grade, that once this conditional use expired because the owner sold the property, it would still be a commercial building after that, correct? So, in the middle of the neighborhood.
I would move to approve the application subject to the engineering, planning, and fire department comments listed in the staff report and all listed conditions.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
I believe that the vote then is, could you raise your hand if you are opposed to this application for the record? Thank you. The motion passes. item is Cottage Village Shopping Center. Number 2, subdivision of 7 lots. Are there any questions by the commissioner, or is there a motion?
I would move to approve subject to staff recommendations.
Second.
Motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 3, 6275 Overlook Road, subdivision of 2 lots. Is there a motion?
Move to approve subject to staff recommendations.
A second.
Any discussion? All right, properly moved and seconded for 6275 Overlook Road. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Number 4, 5761 US Highway 90 West, subdivision of 2 lots.
Move to approve subject to staff recommendations, allowing the applicant latitude to work with the staff to adjust the property lines relative to the flood zone.
Second.
Motion approved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Number 5, 1154 Athay Road, subdivision of 5 lots.
I would move to hold over until September 7th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. Motion to hold over to September 7th. I'll second that. All in favor to hold over until September 7th?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And then, do we need to vote on number 6, or since they withdrew?
No, since they made the request to hold over.
I thought so. Is there any other business before the council? Are we?
We would like to request that the Planning Commission approve a call for an action plan update presentation for the September 21st meeting. So a motion and a second would be requested for this.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second? Opposed? Great. Motion passes. Any other business?
No, ma'am.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We'll adjourn.